South Coast being littered with garbage again because people just can't afford to meet the fees that are necessary to get the garbage out Mountain View Road and across another set of ridges to a place somewhere else where we're paying 3, 4, 5, 6 times the amount we're paying now. How do we deal with it? We have an opportunity to examine it. I'd like to hear from our staff people on this issue. And again, I don't think the question of just staying with the status quo here was ever on the table when this idea was brought to us.
Supervisor Colfax, first of all, I think this proposal, there's been a lot of work done in that, and I think it pretty well gives a roadmap to where if things went wrong and what solid waste Willis would do in that area. And as far as response to the county, this cost-benefit analysis was thoroughly vetted, so I don't know what more we can direct staff or whatnot to do on this. I mean, I don't know the answer of why staff at the CEO's office responded to this cost-benefit analysis and not our division of solid waste. I don't know that answer. Maybe Howard's going to tell us why it was done in the CEO's office and not at solid waste. But as far as the issue of the information, I think this solid waste proposal, as you just said earlier, is a very detailed proposal, very detailed. I think it answers, if you read it, I don't think there's any question in there that is an answer of what the operation is now and what the future operation would do with the contingencies to include the Annapolis problem. Anyways, Howard, did you have a comment you want to make?
Well, I was going to try to answer Supervisor Colfax's question. This is one of those times where the loss of a lot of institutional knowledge with Paul Kaler promoting out to the CEO's office and then to, up to Willits is missed. But at the time the Winslow and Kelly report was done, which did look at converting or completing the South Coast facility for commercial transfer, I think that Paul Kaler did have a vision of what might be necessary down the road. That station was set up to be have a second phase for commercial transfer. So it's not like it hadn't been planned out. In fact, we have those numbers that Supervisor McCowan referred to a moment ago, just for that very reason. So Mr. Kaler definitely was a far-ranging thinker, and I think that station and many others he had plans. There was another company, a Sonoma County-based company, that was the franchise hauler when I became director 4 years ago. The contract was subsequently bid, and a new company got the franchise, and they're using Annapolis. It must have made sense at the time versus completing the project at South Coast. But as I recall, what has complicated this is the idea of privatization. As I recall, the proposal back then was that the county would continue to operate self-haul at South Coast, but that a commercial operator could augment the station to take commercial vehicles with just $300 and something thousand in improvements. So I don't know that that option's gone away, Supervisor Colfax, and I would say the Solid Waste Division has those contingency plans still.
Supervisor McCowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate the work that Solid Waste of Willis has done to bring the proposal forward, and also the work that Deputy CEO Wyatt has spent with the analysis. And, there's a few assumptions that this is built on, though, and that is that all of the transfer stations would be part of it, and that's far from proven. In fact, there's really no indication here at all that this would ultimately apply to Albion, Potter Valley, and Casper, and particularly with regard to Casper, it's questionable because there's currently a joint powers agreement with the City of Fort Bragg that specifies that the transfer station shall continue to be operated by a public agency with public employees. So it would require the approval of Fort Bragg. So I think what we're really looking at, in all probability, would be South Coast and perhaps Boonville. And the current agreement does the things that Solid Waste of Willits says. It provides better service, reduced cost to the ratepayer, stability. Those are all beneficial things. But the privatization approach, or pure privatization, might not be the only way to accomplish that. And the cost-benefit analysis option 1, or alternative 1, also mentioned that a 5% increase in franchise fees would return $291,000 to the county. That would go a long way towards building the $370,000 worth of improvements that are required. Another option could be, and I think this is the one that I would like staff and Solid Waste of Willits to explore, is a partnership arrangement where they work together to develop a proposal that would build the improvements, that would reduce the, and based on the cost savings in the differential between disposal at Annapolis and Potrero Hills, it should be possible to both provide an increased franchise fee to the county and reduce costs to the ratepayers. So I'd like to see if that's a viable option.
Well, Tom, you have a comment? Well, you know, that may be an option. We don't have to take this proposal in its whole. I mean, we can. We have our transfer stations, recycling facilities, fragmented now. For instance, in my district, they're all in the private sector. You know, so if, of course, that has to do, and I see waste management actually is here and listening here today on this discussion. Maybe we want to start off with like Boonville and South Coast, and hone right in on an agreement with them too, and start there, and see how that works. That seems to be what the Supervisor Colfax was indicating, the way I understood it. So maybe that with those two locations, maybe a good place to start. Supervisor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, to the comments of Supervisor McCowan, I think that maybe a step would be trying to see if there is an actual option that maybe is not part of 1, 2, or 3, as in the executive summary that we received, but looking for cost efficiencies and the possibility of partnerships. So perhaps we could direct Solid Waste of Willits and DOT to work together on, to actually sit down and work together on a possible joint proposal. Now, if they're not able to do so, I think that then that may help direct the board. If they can't come to some agreement, that's going to very clearly delineate for us where the areas of disagreement and why. Who gains what, who's asking for what, who's proposing what, and then maybe that would help us say, yes, this could work in terms of a partnership, no, it wouldn't. But I think that maybe that will sort of solidify some of the issues and get everything out on the table, and we'll see where we can go. And is a partnership operational scenario, you know, possible? But I still am very concerned, and Supervisor McCowan expressed it, but not sort of with the emphasis that I have, this concept of, in a sense, cherry picking, and we have an overall mission and responsibility to take a certain aspect of the equation off the table, leaving us with the other ones. I think we need to understand it in a context, and that's where we need to hear from the department. What does that do to the overall operation if you take a component of what work and mission they had and send it elsewhere? So I really want a comprehensive review, and I really want our DOT staff to be involved in that and get it back to us quickly and see where we are. I don't think we can resolve it today.
Supervisor Colfax.
Well, that all sounds very reasonable, and I don't disagree that might be the ideal thing, but alternative option 3 says very explicitly, and this is to take into account what Mr. Kaler, the work Mr. Kaler did and his planning and so forth, but we didn't move on it then. It was out there. We spent a great deal of time looking at a very good job in the way of a proposal, but we didn't move on it. And it says here, the county does not have the available resources at this time to invest in site improvements that would be to improve or accommodate